Kiruko struggles with female emotional outbursts. Lady Gaga's CDs will not work in the apocalypse. Maru and his street gang past. Kidney transplants from man-eaters is life-saving measures. And Taro's escape plan by turning into a rock that somebody can throw. All this stuff and so much more was in Heavenly Delusion episode 5. What a jam-packed episode. Jokes aside, my gosh, there's way too much stuff in this episode, and I cannot wait to dive in and chew on every single bit of it. Such a fantastic episode. As usual, it really does feel like it's overpaced, like way too much stuff is happening, but at the same time, I never feel like it's too fast-paced. So they're doing a really good job presenting the series. But yes, where to start? I guess we could start things off in the nursery. I think I typically start in the nursery itself, but yes, we find out that Taro didn't make it. They tried to help him out by doing different performances and play music. They even kind of noted the fact that Taro was like really, really strong. So that was essentially his unique ability, was that he was incredibly strong. They were pushing over this rock. He's like, yeah, he could literally lift it and throw it. So Taro was really, really strong, which makes me wonder how Tokyo was able to pull away from him because he was like pulling him in to kiss, but I guess he was technically leaning in. Anyways, but no, they kind of hinted at a lot here, a real lot. Namely around Tokyo questioning Kona if Asura died the same way, from the same illness. And Kona sort of just kind of covers up by saying, yeah, that's exactly what happened, possibly, and then walks away. Now, yes, you can argue the idea that maybe Asura, because they were ill, did that. But no, based on what the director is talking with the other doctors about, no, Asura specifically is their sin. And this is a really cool insight because I think throughout this entire episode, what we finally got an indication of was that the director loves the children. Like, she is crying over the loss of Taro. And again, my assumption was that this facility was testing stuff on the children. It wasn't the case. The child, Taro specifically, came down with the disease. And they're trying to create a body that's immune to everything. And this disease that Taro had somehow infected him, despite the fact that they claim they've made bodies for these children that is immune to every disease. So now we're finding out that yes, they are in fact in this facility trying to create sort of a human that can surpass all the diseases in the world itself, and something spawned within his body that said no. Nature said no, you can't create that. Here's a new disease, which is fascinating. It sort of gives me a lot more hope for the people of this facility. It makes it as if the director herself is not some cackling bad guy in the background using the children for her experiments. She says specifically, the day of fate can't be changed, but we need to find out what this illness is and cure it. So apparently they're claiming, or at least the director's claiming, there's some day of fate that's coming up, and they're preparing for it. And these children are sort of their preparation for that. Now, again, I say all that, but it could be a factor of them wanting to create these perfect bodies that they can then put themselves inside, just like Kiruko had pretty much happened to him. But still, it sort of implies, at least through her breaking down her sorrow, her upset about Asura specifically, that was their fault. They failed. They caused that. It sort of indicates that these people, this facility, aren't cackling bad guys. And I like that. I like there's a little bit more to this world and this facility than I initially thought. My assumptions are evil. But yeah, specifically with Asura. Again, from Kono's perspective, he's seen that she, unfortunately, what's YouTube term for this? Dangled from somewhere. I'll just say that. She dangled from somewhere. I guess YouTube would be friendly with that. Which really does suck. The director was specifically saying that, no, her mind was fine with her body. Like, they created something that itself, if we didn't touch it, would be able to live on. She herself, if she was alone, would be fine. We screwed up. We placed too much ideas onto her. So obviously it seems like they themselves probably subjected her to something, told her something, put her in an environment that she wasn't comfortable with. They messed up. And she was struggling with the ideals and stuff they were putting upon her, and it led to her passing. And maybe that's possibly why they're so careful now with the environment they put these children in. Which makes you wonder, because technically with Kona, it seems to indicate that Kona's been around longer than Tokyo, at least. Kona was around for Asura. We don't know if anybody else in the current group that we're seeing knew Asura, but at least Kona did. So you would think that Kona was at least subjected to similar aspects, or maybe, again, Asura was separated, given these ideas and whatnot, that caused her to push her over the edge. But yeah, fascinating stuff. And then, of course, it ends everything with the fact that they came into the director and they said, director, you gotta come see this. We just cremated him. Come on in here. And there's a rock sitting there. So what the rock is the big question mark. Is the rock something that was developing over time inside of him that was possibly the cause of the disease, or the presence of the disease in him caused this to develop over time and create? And again, what is this rock? Is this rock going to be a creature, a living creature? Is it going to be something they can use to find a cure for this disease? That's all the big question mark. Or is it sort of him re-incubating himself so that he can live on? I guess is another question mark. But yeah, a bunch of really, really interesting stuff around the facility and the director and everybody. And again, it really did twist my mindset on what the director's after, if she's an evil person or not. Yeah, quite a bit outside of the facility. Namely being, let's start with Kiruko. Kiruko apparently is finally sort of getting, let's be honest what they're going for here. They're having Kiruko experiencing female emotion. And it's something I guess he's never really dealt with before, but now he's struggling with. And the idea that he's gotten connected with Maru. He's always been alone this entire time, and now finally, now that he spent so much time with Maru, and maybe because Maru confessed to him, there's a struggle that's happening now where he's becoming bonded with him. After this whole fight at the arcade, he's like, wow, Maru just, my Maru kicked the crap out of those guys. Man, that's great. Wait, I'm saying my Maru. Acting like, wow, it's like a child to me, somebody that I'm close to. I really do feel like it, at least most of the dialogue is really kind of indicating this aspect of Kiruko sort of forming a motherly bond to Maru. I guess you could totally go the shipping route and everything and say that it's love, like bodily love or whatever, but I think what they're really kind of indicating here is Kiruko sort of seeing Maru as like this child that she's protecting and wants to protect and take care of. I know I'm switching genders here. It's just the aspect of this. Somebody asked me the other day, why do you keep referring to Tokyo as a female? And I'm like, this show is so gender up in the air, and it's perfectly fine. Whatever the characters want to be, it's fine. It's just, it seems like it's like all over the place on what it wants to indicate each. Tokyo especially is very, very ambiguous. And that, I think that's for a purpose. I think they're making most of these characters seem ambiguous. Yes, I make an assumption of immediately, or you could go by speech patterns where they say boku or whatnot, but again, overall, it's just very neutral. And again, I think that's for a purpose. There's a good chance that every single child inside of the facility aren't gendered. They could be completely neutral. It's obvious that they are manufactured. They're created to be that way. They're bodies that are immune to everything. Who's to say what they actually have? But anyways, sidetracking here. Kiruko is struggling with emotions. And so when, yes, he comes back and Maru's gone, completely panics and gets extremely emotional, which I think is a really interesting thing to get into. The thing that we're kind of establishing here is that when the whole accident happened, they placed his brain inside of his sister's body. And so the release of certain hormones and stuff is going to be completely different, but there's still the establishment of other body parts within Kiruko's body that would be releasing those. And so it could be possibly causing him to be emotional in ways that he's not used to. And so it's a really interesting aspect biologically to really start to kind of dig into and see how that affects the characters himself. Does the fact that his body is releasing those sort of things affect how he sees Maru, and then he becomes conflicted by that? Maybe eventually, yes, forming a love for Maru, even though he doesn't necessarily think that he could do that because, well, I'm a boy. I can't do that. Wait, what's to say I can? We're not talking about social norms within a world that is a post-apocalyptic, which is technically interesting, the concept they get into with the whole collapse theory, with the war collapse theory, and this idea that everybody's monitoring each other and throwing rules upon each other, and that caused the big collapse. But yeah, it's an interesting aspect to get into, and I'm kind of curious to see what direction they end up taking that. The other aspect that we kind of get from Kiruko is apparently their mindset on how literature should be handled. Hey, there's a bunch of books next door. Oh yeah, I already grabbed a bunch of them. I'm gonna read the ones that seem to be the most valuable, and then I'm gonna burn them because information is knowledge. It's like most people's perspective is you find knowledge in a post-apocalyptic world, or you see a collapse happening, you preserve knowledge. Like literature is this massive thing of knowledge, and. But no, his perspective is read the best ones and burn it. That way you have it up here and nobody else can have it unless they pay you for it. It's like, that's what if you die tomorrow? Then nobody can have it. This whole aspect of this, there was talking about the society that's trying to rebuild the world as it was, and it's like, you're not helping. But the other little thing they kind of slipped in here at some point while they're talking about Maru's past, which we'll get into in a minute, was the fact that Maru said, wait, Kiruko, your advertisement said that you could take out man-eaters. And his response was, oh, that's just advertisement. I don't think that's the case. I really do think that there's something about Kiruko that's special. And again, I think that has a lot to do with whatever the doctor did to him. And as we've seen with this episode, if you put body parts of man-eaters into people, it's like life-saving, and it gives you abilities and stuff. So I think possibly when the doctor did save him, and by putting him into Kiruko, he probably implanted some man-eater stuff as well, just to be able to make his body heal. Because again, brain transplants is not an easy process, especially in a post-apocalyptic world. I mean, we're talking about something that's not even practiced in our world. Again, we don't technically know how advanced technology was before the collapse. I mean, we have laser guns. But still, I think that advertisement is true. And he does know how to kill them, or at least has an ability to do that. I mean, he did it with the whole fish thing. I observe everything around me, and I use that to survive as I have now. But yeah, Maru, we get a full history, which we finally established, at least according to him, is that he was born in the year of the collapse. He spent like 3 years in this home. Eventually they had to leave because it was closing. Some dude came by for some turf war, killed the person that was leading them. Then they started following the killer. And then eventually and I like how it transitions from I was following a killer to suddenly Mikura showed up. She just showed up and took me. It's like, did she kill the killer or what? But no, he was apparently traveling with her for a long time. And this is where we find out that Mikura taught Maru how to use his ability, the Maru touch, which is interesting. It specifies that no, Mikura didn't know how to do it as well, even though she taught him how to do it. But it's still kind of establishing that she had knowledge of it. And that would make sense if she's telling Kiruko, take him to heaven, probably knowing that he is from this place and she's from it, so that's how she knew about it. So she came from probably the nursery, that's what we're assuming heaven is. She came from the nursery, was traveling around, knew about that technology, seen Maru and said, you're one of them. Come follow me. Let me show you what we literally created back there. And yes, technically, she had the syringe to give to Maru. So she probably, I don't know if she took that medicine, left, found Maru and said, hey, you go back there and take this with you. Or if she found that cure somewhere else, maybe met the doctor out there, got the cure, and wants to send him back to it. But of course, the big thing that kind of reveals is that if she was from the facility, she did know how to cure it. She does know about Maru, knows that Maru needs to go back there. And what did she die from? I think she died from the same illness that Taro did. I think it looked the same. It's like this blotching of black. So it indicates that she was probably also one of these kids, and that she was lying that she didn't know about the ability or how to do it. She's just like Maru. She probably has some special ability, and she died from the illness. Or was she Asura? No, I'm joking. Was she Asura? But yeah, I kind of skimmed over it, and it's not too much to get into. It's just they kind of establish this idea that the mankind blew it themselves, and the idea that, yes, in the past, this theory is that mankind made robots, was afraid they were monitoring them. Then they were so bored, they started monitoring each other, and then they started to put rules upon each other, and then they blew each other up. Sounds like our world. So yes, all that makes sense. Yeah, and then the final segments of this episode is the guy from the boat showing up and saying, yeah, I got a piece of that thing out of there. I want to go to this place known as the Immortal Order. There's a doctor there that apparently they can implant this thing inside of you and it makes you immortal or gives you abilities, which again kind of indicates the whole thing with the nursery, and that's what they're probably doing there, is implanting these children with the the man-eater stuff, and that's making them different. But I think it's also an aspect of, because they're implanting this thing into them, that's probably what's causing the disease. They're making these immortal bodies, they're using man-eater parts to probably do it, but it also has side effects that they have to figure out how to fix. But I don't necessarily think that the Immortal Order is going to be the nursery, because they have it on the map, they know where it's at, they say that strange people, I think it's probably going to be people that left the facility, or know about the facility, that are doing their own thing. Or people, yeah, like the doctor, my assumption was the doctor was probably from that facility and left, and he's been practicing stuff outside. There's a chance the doctor's a part of that facility, or at least was a part of it at some point. But yeah, he goofed up, because it apparently decays unless you preserve it somehow. And yes, it sort of ties in with what they were talking about in Kiruko's past, with this idea that the rumors was the doctor was experimenting on people and man-eaters. He was probably implanting things into people, and that's probably what kind of created this order. I forgot to mention, but yes, they technically indicate that Tokyo is sick. If Tokyo has the same illness, that's the big question mark. I wonder if it's one of those aspects that because they just seen somebody die of an illness, the assumption is that any time you're not feeling well, that's got to mean that's the same thing. It's that fear that instills upon you when you see something really terrible happen to somebody else. You assume that everything is that. Like, oh, man, I just coughed. I must have this illness that my friend just, passed away from. It makes sense to have that in Tokyo's mind. Now, again, if it's going to be the same thing, it could be, and I think that would be an interesting thing to sort of give a little bit more agency to the characters. Now, granted, Maru and Kiruko don't know this, but at least from our perspective, seeing Tokyo slowly go downhill from this illness, while we see Maru is trying to find the facility, you're thinking they need to get there quick and give Tokyo this shot, because again, that's the assumption is that's going to cure it. So I think it is going to probably be the same disease. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this episode. I'll be curious to find out what the Day of Fate is. That's something that they obviously understand is going to come. Maybe the machines themselves, advanced AI, has told them, hey, there's going to be this moment where something happens. The question is going to be what that is. I wouldn't necessarily see it being something that is like I don't know, maybe a meteor's coming or something like that. Maybe just, it can't be the disease because the disease is something new to them. It's just like a big question mark. Is the environment itself going to collapse itself? Is something going to come, a bad storm, something that's going to cause them to need to make these perfect bodies that can withstand a lot of things? But we'll see. Series continues to be very, very fascinating, and I cannot wait for more. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list of its anime is pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks down below, as well as a membership. I greatly appreciate it, but it supports the channel. You guys mean a lot, and y'all take care.